702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
20 minutes now before 11 o'clock. So let's continue with that series that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. It's a series about the afterlife. And we've been trying to find out what different belief systems say about the afterlife. Like, what happens to you when you die? Have you ever wondered about that? Do you think about that? We looked at what different Christian denominations believe about the afterlife. We looked at what Islam teaches about the afterlife, looked at African spirituality, looked at Judaism, looked at atheism and agnosticism. And today we're discussing what Buddhism teaches about the afterlife. Buddhism is one of the world's 5 most popular religions, and I'm just equally interested in what the religion teaches, what this belief system teaches about the afterlife. And Nicole Wagner is a member of the Diamond Way Buddhist Centre, who's going to guide us through this conversation. Thank you so much for making time for us. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, Clement. It's a great joy to speak to you.
Let's start with just the core teachings of Buddhism. What are they?
So really, Clement, Buddhism is a kind of not a faith religion, but a religion of experience. So we really see what we call enlightenment as our goal. So we understand that most people don't have an easy life and want to get rid of their suffering, and what they would like to achieve is like an ultimate state of happiness. But they can't achieve this through material things. We all know that our bodies come and go, our cars come and go, our houses come and go. This is all impermanent. So what we try in Buddhism is to understand that there's this thing called mind, and that what we're trying to do with our practice methods is like meditation, is to achieve a state of mind that is always joyful and happy and fearless. So that's really our ultimate goal. Yeah.
So for those who may not be aware, who was the Buddha and what is their contribution to modern day Buddhism?
So Buddha is a term, we called him Buddha Shakyamuni, or Prince Siddhartha. He was a prince who was born in Lumbini in Nepal, and basically he lived a very royal life, as they say, and he never knew what it was like to have any difficulties. So the story goes that basically one day he went outside his palace walls and saw that people really do suffer, that they get sick, that they die, that they don't have an easy life, they might not be able to work, these kinds of things. And then he basically gave up his royal life and set off on a path, basically trying to find a way not only to alleviate his own suffering, but also to alleviate the suffering of all beings so that they can reach this happiness. So he lived around 2,500 years ago, a bit more than that. And then he tried many, many, many different ways of trying to find a stable state of mind and find this ultimate happiness. And it took him a long time, but eventually, as the story goes, he sat under a Bodhi tree and then he reached the state of mind. And then once he had reached this very joyful state of mind, he wanted to share it with other people. So basically, for the rest of his life, for around 45 years, he taught to different people, different ways and methods of how to reach the state of mind. Yeah.
So do Buddhists believe in souls or an eternal creator kind of like a god?
No, so we would say that basically we don't call it soul. What people might call soul, we call it mind. So basically, like we say that mind is like a big container, and within it everything can happen. So there's not like some kind of creator that's separate from us. We see everything as part of the same totality. So all beings, not just Buddhists, all beings are part of this expression of mind. And then basically what we do is that we create our own conditions. So through what we call karma, what many people have heard of, but maybe not so sure about what it is, or cause and effect, we realize that if we do good things, then very likely good things will happen to us. But we don't just most of us, we do this for ourselves for a while, but once we realize the effects of doing good things, we also want to benefit other beings. So we want all beings to be able to benefit from being able to be happy. So it's not just about, the Buddhists. Yeah. It's about all beings being able to reach. So there is no soul or creator. We create our own conditions. This is how the Buddhists see it. Yeah.
Okay. What is your belief then? What does Buddhism teach about the afterlife? And I'm glad you mentioned karma there, because I've been wondering, how does it influence an individual's experience after death?
So really, this idea of karma, it's a word that we hear so often. It's been used so it's become part of the modern language. But really it is about, if we build up a whole lot of good impressions and we spend most of our lives doing good deeds, doing good things, kind things, compassionate things, wise things, instead of doing harmful things, then, this is what we're trying to, if we have the awareness, and this is what we do through meditation, through our tools that we have, is that we create like a distance to all the things that we experience that might be disturbing to us. So once we have this, very often we act out of ignorance. We just react to something. So when we just react, we sometimes react like angry or proud or jealous, or we just, in the situation, and we just react like this. So this is not always creating the best karmic conditions. So what we want to try and do through meditation is actually create this distance to that, and through this be able to create more positive karma or more positive impressions in your mind, which can then be able to, when you die, you don't see it so much as you see it as a natural part of what the mind goes through. It goes through death, birth, death, rebirth. It just continues. This mind stream just continues. And the more you practice, the more you understand that it's not such a drama to die, that the mind stream will just continue in another form. And this is what we call reincarnation. And based on your karmic conditions, the good impressions or the negative impressions you've built up, this determines where you are born and how you are born. And this is it's not so much an afterlife, it's actually a continuation. It never ends. So this is basically how we see, I would say some people say the afterlife, we just see it as a continuation of death and birth and rebirth.
Oh, okay. Is that where then the concept of reincarnation come in?
Yes. So if we, karma really determines how we are reborn. We're creating, the good thing about karma is it's not like fate. You can change your conditions at any moment. So if you realize that you have, maybe done a lot of harm in your life, or maybe not done the best things in your life, then maybe once you have a few practice methods that you have the awareness to be able to do it differently, then you try and create as many good impressions. So once you die, it depends on the Buddhist school, but basically we consider it, you go into a kind of an in-between state, in between your life, your previous life, and your next life. And depending on the kind of impressions you've built up, you experience this death as either quite dramatic or like a shock state, or you experience it more like a bliss state. So you go, oh, wow, like I have a new opportunity here. And then your karmic conditions will basically determine how you are reborn. Hopefully you will have good conditions. You have freedom around you. You have access to education. You are allowed to practice what you would like to practice. Something like that. So this is really, it's just a continuation of the mind stream, or the consciousness gets reborn into another form.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's going up to 11 minutes before 11 o'clock. I want to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with Nicole. And if you've got some questions, you've got some input to make, maybe you follow Buddhism yourself, I'd like you to give us a call on 011-883-0702 or send a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. And what do you believe about the afterlife? What do you think happens when we die?
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
Right, it's now 8 minutes before 11 o'clock. We continue our conversation with Nicole Wagner, who is the member of the Diamond Way Buddhist Centre. This is part of our series about the afterlife and what different beliefs say or even teach, like religions teach, about life after death. And today we're focusing on Buddhism. I've got some questions that have come through here. Nicole, there's someone who's asking about the cycle of samsara. What is the cycle of samsara?
Mm-hmm. So really samsara is, what we say is that the cause of all suffering is basic ignorance. So it's like an eye that's looking out, but it can't see itself. It can't see its inherent enlightened good qualities. So basically, because we have this sense of ignorance, we create separation between you and me, between things that we like or we dislike, all these things. And this creation of separation between beings, between things, creates what we call like an ego illusion. So I'm better than you, all this kind of separation. So this is what leads to suffering, because this is really, if we see that I'm better than you or you did something to hurt me, then basically what happens is that this creates this continuous cycle of this wheel of, or cycle of life, or samsara as we call it, of death and rebirth and birth again. So you're continuously taking a new form. This could be, many joke about the Buddhists always saying, don't step on an ant because it might be your aunt. But this is kind of, you can take a human form, you can take an animal form, you can take various forms depending on your karma, like we were talking earlier, and you will continuously go through these forms until you have reached the state of liberation and enlightenment, where you don't need, your karma has now been fully expressed and you no longer need to take a form. But they say that enlightened beings that have a totally unshakable mind, are totally stable and joyful and fearless, they can choose to take a form, like a human form. Human forms are considered to be very useful because we're fully conscious and we can actually, we have a body we can use, a speech we can use. We don't just act out of reflex. So we can really benefit other beings this way. So the more you practice, the more you open up, the more you're able to benefit beings. And as long as we are ignorant and have this feeling of separation, then we will continuously be in the cycle of whatever our karma is telling us. Maybe it's a very good condition. We might be reborn as a human in very good conditions, or maybe not, depending on our karma. But as soon as we have a little bit of awareness, we can create better conditions for the next time until we, ultimately get enlightened and don't need to be in the cycle anymore.
Okay. There's someone who's asking about just the concept of creation and where you believe mankind come from. Like who or what created us?
Yes, so again, we don't really say there is a creator or some situation where there was a creation. So basically we see this, what we were explaining earlier, a mind is like a container, it's like space-like, it's beginningless and it has no end. So we're in this stream of mind that has every potential. So it's like an ocean full of different ways of expressing itself. So we can express ourselves as a human form, but the human form will eventually dissolve and disappear back into space. We can be an animal if it's useful and come back, and then we can dissolve back into space. So there's no beginning or end. It's actually timeless. There is no creation. And depending on certain circumstances, the karma and the expression of mind at the time, this is what creates potential. So basically, it's also quite a difficult concept to grasp, but we consider everything to be, mind to be empty. So it's ultimately joyful, timeless, fearless. This is its natural state. But while we are ignorant, we don't recognize it like that. So we have to go through all these different expressions in order to realize it. that it's actually just inherently enlightened and joyful and blissful. So, yes, there's no beginning or end. Let's put it like that.
Okay, there's we've got a minute left, and I've got in fact, just 40 seconds left, and I've got two quick questions I'd like you to respond to. One says, Clement, is Buddhism a branch of Hinduism, since Buddha is said to come from India? That's a question from Tabang. Another one says, Clement, is it then fair to say that Buddhists do not relate with the concept of heaven and hell?
So yes, Buddhism, I mean, certainly at that time, all these philosophies was kind of developing at the same time, but Buddhism has influences from Hinduism, but also has certain concepts that are different to Hinduism. So like karma is understood a little bit different in Hinduism. So it certainly has its own practices, but a lot of these things were around at the same time. And we do have concepts of heaven and hell, but they're not specific physical places. So you are creating, because you are creating your own conditions, you can experience heaven in this very moment, and you can also experience like a paranoid or an angry or kind of a hell state, because a lot of things are happening to you right now where your negative karma is expressing itself, but it is not permanent. You can change it at any moment. Whenever in your life, whether it's during birth or death or rebirth, you can change your condition. So it's not a permanent state. It can happen at any moment.
And then the question, the other question that came through about, what was it? Yeah, it was Tabang who asked, is Buddhism a branch of Hinduism?
No, as I mentioned before, it's not. It is kind of the influences were there. So Hinduism and Buddhism kind of developed around, the same times. We're in similar situations, but Buddhism has developed. It's got many different branches itself. So it's also very separate and has certain concepts that are similar, but also concepts that are quite different.
Okay.
And also, Nicole? I would say Hinduism does believe in gods. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicole Wagner, for joining us for this chat. She's a member of the Diamond Way Buddhist Centre.